Welcome. We are beginning an examination of the sourced material centered on the really devastating case of Erica Parsons.
It's a story that just fundamentally challenges our understanding of family, of trust, and ultimately of justice.
Yeah, it starts as a missing persons report in rural North Carolina.
But it spirals very quickly into years of deception, federal fraud, and just horrific systematic abuse against a child.
It's a profoundly difficult body of evidence to review.
It is. Erica Parsons was only 13 years old when she died. That was around December 17th, 2011.
And the tragedy of her short life is just compounded by the complexity that authorities faced in bringing this whole thing to light.
Absolutely. This wasn't a standard missing person search. It became a dual investigation almost immediately.
Tackling, what, two very different things at once.
Right. Allegations of severe child torture on one hand and high-level federal financial fraud on the other.
So our mission today is to analyze this entire narrative, using the sources to track the investigative timeline.
And that timeline spanned nearly 5 years.
We really need to dissect the path of deception that was built by her adoptive parents, Sandy and Casey Parsons.
And understand how the confirmation of her death was finally secured, because it often came down to leveraging financial crimes to uncover a murder.
We'll trace that timeline meticulously. We have to start with the initial reports, the very specific and manufactured false claims they used.
The ones they used to cover her absence.
Exactly. And we'll follow that thread right through the federal legal proceedings for fraud.
Because that period, the time they spent in prison for fraud, that provided the crucial leverage investigators needed.
Which ultimately led to the grim forensic confirmation of her death and the murder convictions in state court.
The convergence of those two legal avenues, it's probably the most unique analytical element of this entire case.
Okay, so let's unpack this painful history. Let's start with Erica's origins and the complex arrangement that placed her with the Parsons in the first place.
Erica Lynn Parsons was born February 24th, 1998, to her biological mother, Carolyn Parsons.
And Carolyn's situation was precarious, to say the least.
It was. She had separated from her husband, Steve, who wasn't Erica's biological father, and she was already raising 3 other children.
So this decision was really driven by desperation.
Completely. And a desire to keep Erica out of the foster care system or homeless shelters, something Carolyn had experienced herself.
So she looked for an alternative, a kind of non-traditional placement.
And that led to Erica being taken in by Sandy and Casey Parsons.
Now, critically, Sandy Parsons was the brother of Carolyn's estranged husband, Steve.
Right, and Casey was Sandy's wife, that familial connection. It made the whole arrangement feel more like an informal guardianship at first.
Even though it was formalized later.
Exactly. The adoption was finalized in 2000 when Erica was 2 years old.
And that formalization is key, because it meant the Parsons assumed full legal responsibility.
Including eligibility for adoption assistance payments, which, as we know, become incredibly relevant later in the story.
Carolyn Parsons, her biological mother, she did maintain some contact.
Sporadic, occasional contact. The last time she saw Erica was in January 2011, less than a year before she disappeared.
And we should also note that Erica faced challenges. She has slight hearing impairment.
And, compounding her social isolation, she was homeschooled for most of her life.
Now, what about her biological father?
Billy Dean Goodman. The sources confirm he wasn't really involved in her placement. He actually died in 2016 during the investigation.
But his family history becomes central to the Parsons fabricated alibi.
The central pillar of their lie, yeah.
So the timeline of the actual disappearance, this is where the deception really begins.
It is. The sources place Erica's death or disappearance around December 17th, 2011. She was 13.
And for a year and a half after that, the Parsons family they maintained this facade of normalcy.
They kept receiving adoption payments, cashing the checks, and kept this entire tragedy hidden from everyone.
That gap, a year and a half between disappearance and the report, that's a huge point of friction.
It really highlights how successful their manipulation was, at least within their immediate community.
So the case only came to light on July 30th, 2013. How?
Erica's 19-year-old adoptive brother, Jamie Parsons, finally came forward. It was after a major fight with his parents.
And what did he say?
He stated that he hadn't seen Erica since November of 2011. This one report just cracked the whole thing wide open.
And Jamie's initial statement to the police was, it was explosive.
It was, even though he partially retracted it later.
He told police, straight up, that his parents killed Erica and buried her in our backyard.
He did walk back the specific burial location, but that core accusation that his parents were responsible for her death, that was clear.
And that defined the scope of the investigation from the very first minute.
It instantly triggered a homicide investigation, not just a missing person search.
So when the police confronted Sandy and Casey Parsons, they had a story ready.
Oh, a very detailed, fabricated explanation designed to deflect all scrutiny and buy them time.
This was the core lie.
The core lie. They claimed Erica had voluntarily left their care to live with her biological paternal grandmother,
A woman they named Irene Nan Goodman.
supposedly residing in Asheville, North Carolina.
The effort they put into inventing this character, this whole timeline, is just fascinating in a grim way.
It is. They claimed they initiated contact with the supposed grandmother, Nan Goodman, in July 2011 because she wanted to reconnect with her granddaughter.
So they're trying to frame it as this benevolent family placement.
Exactly. Not abandonment, not a crime.
But the lie unraveled almost immediately.
As soon as investigators started looking, they found no record, no driver's license, no utility bills, no property records.
Absolutely zero evidence that an Irene Goodman existed in Asheville or anywhere else.
This wasn't just a misremembered name. It was a total invention.
And the most damning contradiction came from the very family she was supposed to belong to.
Right. Erica's biological father, Billy Goodman, he confirmed there was no Irene Goodman in his family structure.
In fact, his actual mother, her name was Cloy Goodman.
And she had been dead since 2005.
So they were using the name of a deceased woman's family to invent a living person.
The precision of the fabrication needs to be analyzed. Casey Parsons provided this very specific, detailed sequence of events to law enforcement.
She claimed Erica first met Irene Goodman at a McDonald's in Mooresville, North Carolina.
In September 2011.
And this was followed by a series of visits, culminating in Erica asking to stay permanently with Nan in December 2011.
Right around the time authorities now believe Erica died.
So she used these details to build a solid alibi for why Erica was gone.
And then she claimed her last contact was a single phone call in February 2012 around Erica's birthday.
After which, the phone number was conveniently disconnected.
And she lost the number. The entire narrative was designed to suggest Erica left voluntarily and then cut off contact, shielding them from any responsibility.
The psychology there,
Hey.
it's key.
Yeah.
By making up this whole story, they were hoping the police would just close the cases and run away.
Plausible deniability. They were counting on investigators not being able to disprove the existence of one person in a vast country.
But the fact that they kept receiving money, that was the thread that pulled it all apart.
It was.
So getting into the investigation itself, Jamie Parsons' initial testimony, even with him walking back the burial site, it was still essential.
It proved essential because it painted that grim picture of the abuse and it provided a timeline for Erica's last known hours.
And Jamie later testified at the trials that this abuse was just endemic in the house.
He pinpointed the last time he ever saw Erica, November 19th, 2011.
The scene he described to investigators is just deeply disturbing.
It gives us the most critical insight into her final weeks. She was standing in a corner. Jamie said this was a frequent, brutal punishment.
And he testified about her physical appearance. He said she looked like a zombie.
Which suggests just severe exhaustion or illness. Most tragically, she complained of feeling desperately sick, that she was struggling to breathe.
And the parental empathy in that moment, there was none.
Zero. According to the source material, Casey Parsons' response to her daughter's complaint was to tell her to shut the fuck up.
That detail just says everything about the systematic neglect Erica was experiencing.
Jamie then testified that the next morning, his parents had left the house unusually early, and Erica was gone.
When Sandy and Casey came back later that day, they were alone.
And Jamie observed their demeanor. He relayed this to the court. Sandy looked sick, like he was about to throw up.
Which strongly suggests distress or guilt.
Right, related to a specific event that morning. But Casey, on the other hand, looked normal.
Cold, calculated control over the situation.
And they immediately offered the lie, the story about the grandmother, reinforcing it as the new reality.
As the police investigation stalled in 2013, the case started getting a lot of media attention.
Including national exposure on the Dr. Phil show in August of 2013.
And the Parsons eagerly sought this out, didn't they? They probably thought they could use public sympathy to reinforce their story.
Or maybe pressure the police to stop investigating. But that appearance was pivotal.
Why pivotal?
Because it gave investigators more documented evidence of their deception. The sources detail these specific outlandish claims they made to maintain the Nan Goodman story.
They insisted Erica took none of her belongings.
None of her clothes. Nothing. Because the grandmother had allegedly bought her an entirely new wardrobe.
Casey even claimed that when this Goodman woman picked Erica up, another woman nicknamed Strawberry was there.
And they showed the Parsons a van full of new clothing with the tags still attached. It's just...
So elaborate. And their story started to fall apart right there on air.
It did. They claimed they had taken their other daughter, Brooke, with them to Asheville to drop Erica off.
But Brooke contradicted that claim in police interviews. She said, unequivocally, she never rode to Asheville to drop Erica anywhere.
That's a direct internal contradiction in their timeline.
And the show introduced forensic elements.
Yes, Sandy Parsons agreed to a polygraph test, which was administered by a former FBI agent. The results were damning.
Oh, were they?
He was deemed strongly deceptive.
Strongly deceptive. Not just a little bit.
No, it was a clear result. And Casey, she tried to evade the test entirely.
She claimed she was in too much pain, that it would invalidate the result.
Right, so she refused to complete it. That refusal, combined with Sandy's deception, it shifted the narrative decisively in the public eye.
It went from missing person to guilty parties.
And this is where the investigation pivoted. It went from a state-level missing person search to a federal fraud case.
A legal strategy that ultimately cracked the entire cover-up wide open.
It was revealed that the Parsons had continued to claim Erica for financial benefits long after they claimed she had moved away.
This is where you see the depth of their calculation.
Exactly. On July 30th, 2014, almost 1 year to the day after Jamie reported Erica missing, Sandy and Casey Parsons were arrested.
In Fayetteville on federal fraud charges.
The specifics were straightforward but devastating. They had been continuously receiving and cashing the monthly adoption assistance checks.
For how much?
$634 a month for the entire period Erica was gone.
And they illegally claimed her as a dependent on their federal tax returns.
Right, netting them even more financial benefits through tax fraud.
So the federal charges served a dual purpose. They got the Parsons off the street.
And provided investigators with immense leverage.
The conviction process was pretty swift.
Relatively. Casey pleaded guilty to 15 federal fraud counts. She basically admitted to the whole scheme.
Sandy chose to go to trial.
But a jury found him guilty in October 2014.
The sentencing hearing in February 2015 was crucial.
It was, because it marked the first official acknowledgement in a court of law that Erica was likely dead.
The federal prosecutor, Anand Ramaswamy, he addressed the impossibility of finding any records for Erica.
And he stated it plainly. The reason is she's no longer alive.
The prosecution was establishing that link between the fraud and the underlying murder.
Using the financial crime as evidence of the motive to conceal her death.
U.S. District Judge Thomas Schroeder presided over the sentencing in March 2015, and his comments were scathing.
Casey received 10 years in federal prison. Sandy got 8.
And Judge Schroeder called Casey the brains behind what happened. He branded her a serial swindler.
He made the critical observation that the fraud was used specifically to distract investigators, to allow the family to continue the lie.
And he confirmed the court's belief that Erica endured horrific abuse and that there was no evidence she was still living.
We have to dig into that term, serial swindler. The source material reveals this wasn't an isolated incident.
Casey Parsons had a long, shocking history of this kind of deceit.
A long history. Back in 2000, she was involved in surrogacy fraud. She was hired as a surrogate, became pregnant, and accepted a $10,000 payment.
From the biological parents, Amy Miller and her husband.
Right. But then the fraud began. She contacted Amy Miller, claimed she'd had a miscarriage.
And then just vanished.
Refused to turn over medical records, changed her phone number, sent nasty emails when they pressed her for documents.
The lie only held until her own sister, Robin Ashley.
The same sister who would later testify about Erica's abuse.
She told Amy Miller that Casey was, in fact, still pregnant.
And the situation escalated dramatically. Evidence revealed Casey was trying to sell the baby to her sister, Robin.
And she'd also taken money from at least 2 other couples, hoping to adopt the same child.
Law enforcement had to physically intervene to ensure Amy Miller could take custody of her own child at birth.
So this pattern, using children for financial gain and manipulation, it shows her propensity for these complex, cruel schemes.
And it wasn't just the surrogacy. She also ran an eBay scam, accepting payments for items she never shipped.
So the adoption fraud wasn't an accident.
Not at all. It was the culmination of a decade-long pattern of calculated criminal manipulation, orchestrated primarily by Casey.
And as soon as this criminal case began, what happened to their other children?
The two youngest biological children were removed from the home by social services.
A rapid intervention that confirmed authorities saw the home as deeply unstable and abusive.
It validated everything Jamie had raised concerns about.
We now have to transition to the details of the cruelty Erica suffered. This comes from trial testimony and investigative reports.
The source material paints a grim picture of systematic abuse that lasted for years,
Culminating in what professionals later deemed child torture.
The scope of the cruelty it's very difficult to process. Let's start with the testimony from Casey's sister, Robin Ashley.
She provided that disturbing external view of the violence.
She testified that Casey frequently beat Erica and that standing in the corner was a routine, severe punishment.
The court was presented with photographs of this, right?
5 separate photographs showing Erica standing in that corner.
Ashley also confirmed she saw bruises and marks on Erica frequently.
But the most chilling moment in her testimony relates to a temporary custody handover.
Casey temporarily relinquished custody of Erica to her for several months.
Right. And when Ashley asked why, Casey confessed that she feared she wouldn't kill her if she kept her in the house.
She was aware of the danger she posed.
She was. And for a moment, she acted on it. But that moment was overridden by financial incentive.
She demanded Erica back.
Because she was afraid she'd get in trouble for collecting the adoption assistance checks while Erica wasn't living in the home.
So the financial fraud directly forced Erica back into the home where she was murdered.
It did.
Jamie Parsons' testimony provided the most visceral details of the day-to-day torture.
He stated that the abuse was a family affair. Nearly everyone in the household abused Erica, and this behavior was actively encouraged and directed by Casey.
These described acts, they go far beyond corporal punishment. This is torture.
Squarely in the realm of torture, Jamie testified that Casey would deliberately bend Erica's fingers backwards, trying to break them.
And when injuries like that happened, she was denied any formal medical care.
Instead, Casey would apply crude, homemade casts to the broken limbs. This not only ensured Erica was in pain, but also prevented any official medical records of the injuries.
The living conditions were equally barbaric.
She was reportedly forced to live in a closet, a tiny, confined space.
Locked inside for hours, sometimes days at a time.
She was beaten severely when she relieved herself in there because she had no other choice.
And the evidence about her food.
Jamie confirmed she was often denied meals and forced to eat canned dog food. This detail, combined with the later forensic findings of malnourishment, it just underscores the systematic degradation.
And the violence wasn't limited to Casey.
No. Jamie testified that Sandy Parsons, the adoptive father, was also directly physically abusive. He would frequently punch Erica on the head.
This relentless campaign of cruelty led Dr. Cynthia Brown of the University of North Carolina School of Medicine to provide a professional characterization.
She described the treatment not as abuse, but as child torture.
That clinical assessment is crucial.
It changes the legal and moral understanding of the crime. This was sustained, intentional torment.
While the Parsons were serving their sentences for federal fraud, the FBI and local authorities, they never stopped searching.
They understood the fraud was just a cover for a much more serious crime. The FBI increased the reward for information from $25,000 to $50,000.
And the time served in federal prison proved to be the decisive element.
The break in the case came in September 2016. While Sandy Parsons was incarcerated at Butner Federal Prison, investigators from Rowan County established communication.
Yeah, and by August 2016, the warrants confirm it. Sandy Parsons finally acknowledged to an investigator that Erica was dead.
This was the crucial turning point. It provided leverage that even the prospect of the death penalty might not have achieved.
Facing a long time in prison, he started cooperating.
And his admission was shockingly detailed. He confessed to the harsh treatment, admitting to locking Erica in a closet, beating her with a belt buckle, bending her fingers back, and choking her.
He placed the disposal of her body on December 19, 2011.
Just 2 days after her presumed date of death, and he provided the location.
An area off Taylor Chapel Road in Pageland, South Carolina, near his own mother's home.
And because he was a federal inmate, the logistics of taking him out of prison to guide the search team were complex.
So they needed a specific legal order.
Exactly. An order for custody of a federal inmate. It's not a routine procedure. It had to be formally issued to allow an escort team to take physical custody of him from Butner.
To ensure the secure transfer of a high-profile inmate to a remote, unsecured area.
And on September 27, 2016, Sandy successfully led the team to the location.
Her skeletal remains were recovered in a shallow grave on Blair Hendrick Road in Chesterfield County, South Carolina.
The grim confirmation finally ended the uncertainty for the investigators.
It's also worth noting that investigators had already found disturbing evidence in prior searches.
In a shed connected to Sandy Parsons, yes, they found a videotape, a hammer, teeth, and Erica's school records.
Items suggesting an active effort to conceal evidence long before the remains were found.
The recovery of Erica's remains allowed authorities to finally proceed with the forensic analysis needed for state murder charges.
The official findings from the North Carolina Office of the Medical Examiner were released in January 2018.
And the autopsy confirmed, in horrifying detail, the long history of abuse and neglect.
Due to the state of the remains, the decomposition over 5 years, the exact immediate cause of death couldn't be determined.
Right. Whether it was blunt force trauma, strangulation, an untreated illness, that specific cause was undetermined.
But this is a critical distinction. While the cause was undetermined, the manner of death was not.
Exactly. It was definitively ruled as homicidal violence of undetermined means.
Which means the medical examiner was certain her death was caused by the intentional, unlawful actions of another person.
The sheer scope of injuries and evidence of neglect made accidental or natural death impossible to conclude.
And the skeletal evidence itself provided the most damning indictment.
The autopsy detailed numerous fractures in various stages of healing, which demonstrated she sustained severe, violent injuries over a prolonged period.
And she was being re-injured while older fractures were still mending.
The specific injuries were cataloged. Fractures to her nose, her jaw, her upper right arm, 9 ribs, and several vertebrae.
The severity and multiplicity of these fractures across her entire skeleton confirmed the systematic torture described in the testimony.
And beyond the trauma, the state of her bones provided clear evidence of severe malnourishment,
which corroborated the testimony about her being denied proper food, including being forced to eat dog food.
The forensic report solidified the entire narrative.
So with that evidence secured, Rowan County moved quickly. On February 19, 2018, a grand jury indicted both Sandy and Casey Parsons
on 4 severe felony counts: first-degree murder, felony child abuse inflicting serious injury, felony concealment of death, and felony obstruction of justice.
And given the evidence of premeditated torture and concealment, prosecutors announced in April 2018 that they would seek the death penalty.
It was a significant strategic move, designed to apply maximum pressure on both defendants.
As the case moved toward trial, the defense teams began to negotiate.
Casey Parsons, facing the immediate prospect of the death penalty, chose to negotiate a plea.
On August 2, 2019, she pleaded guilty to first-degree murder.
Her sentence was life without parole.
This plea allowed the state to secure a guaranteed conviction for murder without a lengthy, traumatic trial. Casey, the orchestrator, received the most severe sentence possible short of capital punishment.
Sandy Parsons' trial was initially set for April 2020, but with Casey's life sentence secured and the threat of the death penalty still looming.
He also entered a plea deal.
On December 17, 2019, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder along with the other charges.
His sentence was a minimum of 33 years in state prison.
And it is absolutely vital to grasp the sequencing of these sentences.
Right. Sandy's 33-year state sentence was mandated to be served after he completed his prior 8-year federal sentence for fraud.
The federal charges were the initial mechanism for justice. They provided the long-term custody needed to compel his cooperation and secure the state murder conviction.
The timeline of their custody transfer really underscores this. Sandy completed his federal sentence and was released from federal custody on January 14, 2022.
And he immediately began his state sentence at Central Prison.
Casey, who had the longer federal sentence of 10 years, was released from federal custody later on November 25, 2023.
And she began serving her non-parole life sentence in the North Carolina state system. The federal fraud, which at first seemed like just a financial crime, was the essential key.
The key to holding them long enough to prove the murder.
This intensive look at the source material reveals a chilling case that required immense strategic effort by law enforcement.
It began as a catastrophic failure, a child vanishing for 18 months.
And it only gained traction when the investigation transitioned, utilizing federal financial fraud laws to successfully prosecute the underlying capital crime of murder.
Absolutely. The financial fraud provided that essential operational and legal leverage.
It took the Parsons off the streets, into custody, and gave investigators years of pressure and isolation to work with Sandy Parsons.
which resulted in finding Erica's remains and getting that crucial forensic confirmation.
Without those fraud charges, the case might have just languished indefinitely as an unsolvable missing persons report, hidden by that sophisticated Irene Goodman lie.
What stands out most profoundly here is the tragic confirmation of the earliest, most terrifying accusation.
Right. The foundational information about the abuse was present in Jamie Parsons' initial report.
He said his parents killed Erica.
And the source material confirms the extreme severity of that abuse, characterized as child torture, was tragically true. The truth was just hidden behind the parents' intricate pattern of financial and social manipulation.
If we connect this to the broader picture of these kinds of investigations, this case really underscores the imperative to fully explore and validate the accounts of victims and witnesses.
Even when those accounts are initially retracted or just difficult to accept,
Jamie's initial frantic belief proved to be the correct path toward the truth.
we hope that this examination of the facts sheds light on the trajectory of this investigation and the hard-fought justice finally rendered for Erica Parsons, who suffered so much.
Thank you for taking the time to review this material with us.
Thanks for listening.